I'll never forget the way my mom looked at me the day I brought my fiancée home for the first time. Not because she smiled or hugged her or even said something kind. No, it was the way her eyes flicked up and down like she was inspecting a car she didn't order. I was 27 at the time, and my name's Alex. I'd been dating Natalie for about 2 years then, and for the most part, things were good. At least, I thought they were. I worked in marketing at a mid-sized firm in the city, nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave me a sense of direction. I'd recently started lifting weights and getting into shape again after letting myself go during the early years of my career. Natalie was a nurse, smart, outgoing, and way more confident than me. Everyone told me I was lucky to be with her. I believed them. My family, on the other hand, treated her with the kind of forced politeness you reserve for someone you know you're going to be complaining about the moment they leave. My mom, whose name is Denise, especially had a way of turning compliments into insults. "She's very assertive," she said after our first dinner together, over wine with my dad in the kitchen. "Are you sure that's not too much for you, Alex? You've always been the quiet type." Sensitive. That was her favorite word to use on me. Sensitive. She wielded it like a scalpel, sharp, subtle, and always leaving a mark. I grew up as the youngest of three boys. My older brothers, Matt and Brandon, were more like clones of my dad, loud, confident, and obsessed with sports and business. Matt ran a gym, Brandon worked in sales. Every holiday turned into a testosterone showdown, and I was always the odd one out. I liked books. I was good with numbers. I never shouted across the dinner table just to be heard. Growing up, I learned early to stay quiet and keep the peace. My family didn't value sensitivity. They saw it as weakness. My mom, especially, had this way of painting my thoughtfulness as immaturity. If I got emotional, it was, "Why are you making a scene?" If I stayed quiet, it was, "Don't sulk, Alex. Use your words like an adult." There was no winning. When Natalie and I got engaged, I honestly thought they'd be happy for me. Maybe I was naive, but I figured they'd see how she made me smile, how I'd finally grown out of my shell. I thought maybe this would be my chance to be treated like an equal adult in the family, respected, not just tolerated. But from the second we announced it at Thanksgiving dinner, I could feel the air change. My mom did this tight-lipped smile and just said, "Oh, well, that's fast." It wasn't, though. We'd been together for 2 years, and Natalie had been pushing for an engagement for the last 6 months. I saved up for a ring that cost me nearly 3 months' salary. I was proud of it. I was proud of her. But the way my mom looked at us, like we'd made some mistake she was too polite to correct, it stuck with me. My dad congratulated me, but only after making a joke about hope she signs a prenup, which was rich coming from a man who once invested $40,000 into my uncle's pyramid scheme and still insists it would have worked if the market hadn't crashed. Matt and Brandon barely looked up from their phones. Brandon asked if she had any hot nurse friends, which he found hilarious. Natalie didn't. She just gave him a flat smile and said, "Not ones that would go for you." I tried not to laugh, but I could see my mom stiffen across the table. From then on, everything Natalie did became a target. If she offered to help in the kitchen, my mom would say, "Oh no, I've got it. I know how you girls work long shifts. You need to rest." If she didn't offer, it was, "Well, not everyone's raised to pitch in, I guess." She couldn't win either, and every time I tried to defend her, I'd get pulled aside after and warned not to pick fights or ruin the mood. After that Thanksgiving, we started seeing my family less. Not out of anger, really, more just self-preservation. I wanted to protect Natalie from their passive aggression, and honestly, I wanted to protect myself too. It's exhausting trying to decode backhanded compliments and pretend they don't bother you. Natalie said she didn't mind, but I could see it wore on her. I'd catch her looking at me after a snide comment like she was waiting to see if I'd say something. Sometimes I did. Other times I just smiled through it like I'd done my whole life. I guess the first real crack came a few months before the wedding. Natalie and I were at my parents' house for my mom's birthday. We brought flowers, wine, and a necklace Natalie picked out herself. Mom opened it, smiled, and said, "Oh, that's different. Not really my style, but thank you." Then she set it aside without another word. Natalie didn't say anything, but later in the car, she stared out the window the whole way home. That night, she said, "I don't think your mom likes me, and I don't know how I'm supposed to marry into a family that thinks I'm some kind of intruder." I didn't know what to say, because she was right. And deep down, I think part of me had always known my family wouldn't make space for someone like Natalie, someone who didn't play their games or back down politely when cornered. But I told her I'd talk to them, that I'd fix it. I just didn't realize how broken the foundation already was. The next weekend, I visited my parents alone. I tried to be diplomatic. I said I felt like Natalie wasn't being fully accepted, that she was making an effort, and maybe they could meet her halfway. My mom listened, nodding slowly, then said, "Sweetheart, we're not the problem. She is. You just don't see it because you've always fallen for girls who boss you around. You think it's love when really you're just desperate to be needed." I sat there in stunned silence. Then she added, "You're my baby. I'm just looking out for you." That sentence, "You're my baby," hit me like a truck. I wasn't a baby. I was 27, getting married, holding down a full-time job and a mortgage. But to her, I'd never be more than the soft-spoken kid who needed protecting from his own feelings. I left that day with a headache and a sinking feeling in my stomach. I didn't tell Natalie what my mom said. I wanted to protect her. Or maybe I just didn't want to admit how deeply that conversation had rattled me. Instead, I threw myself into wedding planning. Natalie did most of it, choosing venues, narrowing down caterers, organizing schedules. I helped where I could, but I'll admit, I was distracted, torn, still trying to reconcile the family I came from with the future I was trying to build. Then came the final straw. 2 months before the wedding, we had an engagement party, not thrown by my family. Of course, they claimed it was too expensive to host one, despite the fact they'd just redone their backyard with new landscaping and a pergola. Natalie's best friend, Lily, hosted it at her apartment. It was small, cozy, just close friends and some family. Natalie looked amazing that night. Red dress, hair up, the kind of confident beauty that made people stare. I felt proud to have her by my side. My mom and dad showed up late. No explanation, no gift, just walked in like they were attending out of obligation. My brothers didn't show at all, said something about work conflicts. Mom gave Natalie a once-over and said, "Well, I guess red is brave," then hugged her with one arm like she was made of glass. The whole evening was uncomfortable. Natalie tried to engage them, but they mostly talked to each other in hushed voices or made sarcastic comments under their breath. At one point, I walked in on my mom whispering to Lily's boyfriend in the kitchen, saying, "We're just praying Alex doesn't get left at the altar. This one seems flighty." That was it. That was the moment something in me snapped. Not with anger, but clarity. A hard, cold kind of clarity that settled in my chest and stayed there. I didn't say anything to her right then. I just walked back into the party and took Natalie's hand. She smiled at me, and I smiled back, but something had shifted. I knew it wouldn't be long before everything came crashing down. And I was right, because the betrayal that followed would change everything, not just with my family, but with Natalie too. And when it finally happened, it didn't explode like a bomb. It crept in like a shadow, quiet, cold, unforgiving. I wish I could tell you that after the engagement party, things started getting better, that maybe my parents saw the error in how they were treating Natalie and backed off. But no, it got worse. Not louder, not more obvious, just deeper, sharper, quieter. The kind of toxicity that doesn't scream in your face. It just poisons the air you breathe until you can't tell what's real anymore. It started with subtle disconnections. First, my mom began forgetting things related to the wedding. Like when she told my aunt that Natalie didn't want a bridal shower because she wasn't into that girly stuff, even though Natalie had already invited her to the one Lily was planning. Or when she said she accidentally missed our registry link and instead sent us a vintage toaster from the 70s that looked like it had been dug out of her basement. "It's sentimental," she said. "I thought you'd appreciate something with family history." When I opened it, there was a note inside from my grandma, dated 1989, addressed to my dad. So yeah, not even meant for me. Natalie was starting to feel the pressure. I could see it in the way she double-checked every text message before she sent it to my mom. The way she forced a smile whenever someone from my side of the family made a passive-aggressive comment. "Maybe they're testing me," she said one night while we were lying in bed, the glow of her phone lighting her face. "Like hazing, you know? If I can survive your mom, I can survive anything." I laughed, but it wasn't funny. I didn't want her to survive my family. I wanted her to be embraced. But I didn't know how to bridge the gap between the woman I loved and the people who were supposed to love me. Then came the rehearsal dinner. We held it at a small Italian place we both loved for years. Intimate, warm, low-lit, nothing flashy, just our closest friends and immediate family. Natalie wore this navy blue dress with gold earrings, and I swear, everyone turned when she walked in. She had this presence. Confident, effortless. She greeted everyone with grace, even my mom, who responded with, "Oh, you look so bold tonight." Dinner started off okay, but it didn't take long for things to unravel. My dad got into a political debate with one of Natalie's uncles. My mom asked the waiter if they had any more traditional Italian food that wasn't too spicy, even though she was holding a plate of plain spaghetti. And Matt, my oldest brother, decided that halfway through the dinner was the perfect time to bring up his new gym franchise, loudly explaining how much money he was pulling in every month while looking directly at me as if daring me to compete. I tried to keep things light. I really did. I made small talk, refilled drinks, cracked jokes. But the whole time, I felt this undercurrent. Like the tide was pulling away beneath us, and I was the only one who noticed. Natalie stayed calm, but her eyes kept flicking to me, silently asking, "Are you going to say something?" I should have, but I didn't want to ruin the night. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing us shaken. And then came dessert. We had arranged a small toast at the end of the night. Nothing dramatic, just a thank you to our guests. Natalie went first. She stood up, held her glass, and thanked everyone for supporting us, even if we'd had a few speed bumps. It was gracious, poised, mature. Then it was my turn. I stood up, looked around the room, and said something like, "We're really grateful to have you all here. I know not everything's been easy, but it means the world to have our families in one place tonight." Simple, honest. I wasn't calling anyone out. I was trying to build a bridge. And that's when my mom cut in. From the far end of the table, she raised her own glass and said, "Well, I just hope you're ready for what marriage is actually like. It's not all smiles and speeches. Some people aren't built for commitment." The whole table went silent. Even the waiter froze mid-step. Natalie stared at her. "Excuse me," she said, calm but deadly. My mom smiled that tight, plastic smile of hers. "Oh, don't take it personally. I'm just saying, I've seen women like you come and go in this family. You shine bright at first, and then," she trailed off and sipped her wine. I don't remember what I said. I think I muttered something and sat down, humiliated. Natalie didn't say another word for the rest of the night. We left early. In the car, she didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just stared out the window and said, "I don't know if I can do this, Alex. I love you, but I don't think I can marry into this." That was the first time she said it out loud. That this wasn't just about my mom being rude or Matt being a jerk. It was about something deeper, something that I hadn't been willing to face. My family didn't respect her. And maybe, just maybe, they didn't respect me either. We decided to take a break from the wedding planning. Just a week. Clear our heads. I thought space would help. I thought it would give me time to talk to my family, to smooth things over, to fix it. But I never got the chance. Because 4 days later, I got a phone call from Lily. Her voice was shaking. "Alex," she said, "you need to come over." Now, I knew something was wrong. She never called me directly, and certainly not in that tone. I drove across town, heart pounding, mind racing through 100 terrible possibilities. When I arrived at her apartment, she opened the door and stepped aside. Inside, sitting on the couch, was Natalie. And sitting beside her, too close, was my best friend, Josh. Let me give you some context. Josh and I had been friends since college. We met during freshman orientation, bonded over our shared hatred of dorm food, and became inseparable after that. He was the kind of guy who made friends in every room he walked into. Charming, funny, effortlessly likable. Everyone loved Josh, Natalie included. They always got along. I never minded. I trusted them both. I mean, Josh was practically a brother to me. He'd helped me move 3 times, stood beside me through breakups, even loaned me money once when my car died. If there was one person I believed would never stab me in the back, it was him. But now he was sitting next to my fiancée in my friend's apartment, and they both looked like they'd been caught in a lie that had gone on just a little too long. "Alex," Natalie said, standing up, "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just stared at her, then at Josh. He stood up too. "Look, man, it's not what you think." I laughed. I actually laughed. "Really? Because it kind of looks exactly like what I think." Natalie stepped forward. "It just had happened. We didn't plan it. We were both confused, I said, my voice finally rising. You were confused? About what? Whether or not you were engaged to someone else. She flinched. Josh ran a hand through his hair. It was one time, Alex. Lily scoffed from behind me. Try 4. That shut them up. I turned to her. 4 times. She nodded. I only found out because Natalie told me yesterday. She said she was going to tell you after the wedding. After the wedding. Something in me went numb. Not anger. Not pain. Just silence. I looked at them both. Natalie, with her lips pressed into a trembling line, and Josh, who suddenly couldn't meet my eyes. I trusted you, I said. Both of you. Natalie reached out, but I stepped back. I can't do this, I whispered. I'm done. And then I walked out. I don't remember the drive home. I don't remember the next few days, either. It all blurred together in a fog of humiliation and heartbreak. But I do remember one thing, clear as crystal. A week after it happened, I got a text from my mom. It said, I told you she wasn't the one. No sympathy, no support, just a smug little I told you so. And in that moment, something inside me snapped, not like a twig, but like a lock. Something that had been holding me back my whole life finally clicked open. Because they weren't just wrong about Natalie. They were wrong about me. And they were about to see exactly how wrong. The days after it all fell apart didn't feel real. I'd always imagined heartbreak would be explosive, fists through walls, yelling in the rain, dramatic scenes ripped from a movie. But it wasn't. It was quiet, numb. Everything was muffled, like I was underwater. People around me kept talking, asking if I was okay, if I needed anything, but their voices didn't quite land. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was the silence that followed. The silence in my apartment, in my inbox, in my phone. One moment, I was planning a wedding with the woman I thought I'd spend my life with. The next, she was gone, and so was my best friend. I didn't cry, not right away. I didn't scream, or punch a wall, or beg anyone to stay. I just shut down. I went to work because it was easier than staying home. I answered emails like a machine. I sat in meetings and nodded on cue. I kept my camera off during Zoom calls and said, good point, when I hadn't heard a word. I became a shell with just enough strength to wear a name tag and nod. I stopped talking to my family completely. After my mom's smug text, I didn't respond. I muted the family group chat. I didn't block anyone. I wanted them to see I was still alive, still reading, but just choosing not to speak. That silence became a strange kind of power. For once in my life, I wasn't explaining myself. I wasn't smoothing things over. I wasn't shrinking to make anyone else comfortable. I was just gone, and it drove them insane. The first few weeks, I barely ate. I dropped 10 pounds without trying. Clothes that used to hug my gut started to hang off me. I'd catch glimpses of myself in the mirror and barely recognize the man looking back. Tired eyes, hollow cheeks. I looked like a ghost. But I didn't care. I didn't care about anything, really. Not until the night I saw Natalie's Instagram. It was 3 weeks post-breakup. I hadn't unfollowed her. I hadn't done anything. Just left everything untouched, like I was waiting for some reset button to fix it all. I don't know why I opened the app that night, but when I did, there she was, smiling in a new photo with Josh, arm around his waist, captioned, not the path we expected, but so grateful for where we ended up. Something inside me cracked. Not out of jealousy, not even rage, but realization. They didn't care. Not about me. Not about what they destroyed. They weren't hiding. They weren't sorry. They had moved on and expected me to be a footnote. A chapter they could reference when talking about how things got messy, but we figured it out. That was the moment the fog started to lift. Not all at once, but like the first deep breath after holding it for too long. The next day, I woke up early. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. I went for a walk before work. Just 15 minutes around the block. It was cold. My lungs burned. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something. That became the new ritual. Walk every morning. No headphones, no podcasts, just silence and gravel under my shoes. A week in, I added a jog. I couldn't go more than 2 blocks without wheezing, but I didn't care. 2 blocks became 4. 4 became 8. I started keeping a log on my fridge, whiteboard marker, just numbers and distances. It felt good to track something, to control something. Work started to shift too. I'd been coasting for months, hiding behind personal stuff whenever my performance dipped. But something about moving my body made my brain wake up. I began offering ideas again during meetings. volunteering for projects, staying late, not because I had to, but because I was invested again. I started mentoring one of the new hires, a sharp guy named Ravi who reminded me of myself 5 years ago. Smart, introverted, unsure if he belonged. Helping him helped me. Made me feel like maybe I had something worth sharing. I also started therapy. I didn't tell anyone. Just booked a session online, paid out of pocket, and went. The therapist's name was Daniel. Soft-spoken, mid-40s, glasses and a cardigan that made him look more like a librarian than a shrink. But he listened. Really listened. I spent the first session talking about Natalie. The second about Josh. By the third, I was talking about my mother. I feel like I've been apologizing for existing my whole life, I told him. He nodded. What would happen if you stopped? The question rattled me. What would happen? Would the world collapse? Would my family disown me? Would I become someone I didn't recognize? Or would I finally become myself? That night, I made a list. It wasn't fancy, just a scribbled bullet list in a notebook. Things I want. Feel strong in my body. Get promoted to senior manager. Travel solo. Cut contact with anyone who makes me feel small. Wake up excited, not anxious. That list became my anchor. I started meal prepping. Not extreme, just chicken, rice, vegetables, stuff I could make on autopilot. I stopped ordering takeout every night. I bought a used exercise bike off Facebook Marketplace and set it up in my living room. 10 minutes turned to 20. I started doing YouTube workouts. Got a cheap set of dumbbells. I didn't become a fitness influencer overnight, but I was moving, sweating, reclaiming my body. And with every drop of sweat, I felt lighter. The weight kept falling off, 30 pounds by month 3. My face looked sharper, my posture straighter. I replaced my old hoodies with fitted shirts. Not because I cared what people thought, but because I liked how I looked. I liked me. By month 4, my manager called me into his office. Said he'd noticed the change. Said he was impressed. Told me there was a senior manager position opening up in another department and asked if I'd be interested. I said yes, without hesitation. The promotion came with a raise and a new office. It also came with something else, respect. People who used to overlook me now asked for my opinion. I wasn't just Alex from marketing anymore. I was someone, and it felt earned. One night, I was at a networking event for work, standing by the bar, sipping club soda, when a woman approached me. Brown curls, glasses, sharp green eyes. I like your shirt, she said. Most guys here look like they just left a funeral. I laughed. Thanks. I used to be one of them. Her name was Claire. She worked in finance, had a sarcastic streak and a dry laugh that made you feel like you were part of a secret joke. We talked for an hour. Then 2. We exchanged numbers. She texted me that night. Next time you wear that shirt, make sure I'm around to see it. I didn't fall for her overnight. I was cautious, careful, but she was patient with me. And slowly, I let her in. She never pushed. Never made me feel like I had to earn her affection. She saw me as I was, not as a project, or a placeholder, or a backup plan. Just Alex. When I introduced her to Ravi at work, he whispered, "Dude, she's out of your league." And for once, I just smiled and said, "I know." We weren't rushing into anything, but it felt solid, real. 6 months post-breakup, I had dropped 60 pounds, been promoted twice, was running 5 miles a week, and dating a woman who genuinely respected me. I'd blocked Natalie and Josh on every platform. Not out of spite, out of necessity. I didn't want reminders. I didn't want closure. I wanted peace. Then, one Saturday morning, I was walking out of a coffee shop when I saw her. Natalie, standing on the sidewalk, holding a paper cup, looking exactly the same. Same coat, same hair, same look of controlled elegance that once made me weak in the knees. Her eyes widened when she saw me. She stepped forward. "Alex." I froze. She looked me up and down, stunned. "Wow, you look different." I shrugged. "Been a while." She blinked. "I wasn't sure it was you. You've changed so much." "Yeah," I said. "I have." There was a long silence. Then she said, "I've been meaning to reach out." "Don't," I said simply. She looked down. Josh and I, it didn't work out. It was a mistake. I thought I wanted. "I don't care," I said, gently but firmly. Her voice cracked. "I miss you." I took a deep breath, looked her dead in the eyes. "I don't even think about you anymore." And then I walked away. I didn't look back. The encounter with Natalie outside that coffee shop should have been the end of the story. I told myself it was. I'd gotten the perfect closure, cool, composed, and unforgettable. I didn't yell, I didn't grovel, I didn't even flinch. I walked away with my dignity, my health, my career, and a woman by my side who respected me. But closure is a funny thing. It rarely arrives in one clean moment. Because even though I walked away from her that day, she wouldn't walk away from me. It started with a follow request. Then two. Then a message on LinkedIn that simply said, "I hope you're doing well." Then another, 2 weeks later. "I just wanted to say I'm proud of you." No apology. No ownership. Just quiet, persistent attempts to creep back in. I didn't respond. I blocked her on every platform she used to reach me. I thought that would be enough. It wasn't. A month later, I got a call from an unknown number. It went to voicemail. "Hey Alex, it's me. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I get that, I really do. But I saw your name in that industry newsletter, and I guess I just wanted to say congratulations. You've changed. Anyway, I won't bother you again." I played it once, then again, then I deleted it. And that was the last time I heard from her directly. But not the last time I heard about her. Because fate, or maybe karma, wasn't quite done with Natalie, or my family, and I was about to be presented with an opportunity one never saw coming. It started with my brother Matt. He texted me one evening out of the blue. We hadn't spoken in over a year, not since the fallout from the wedding that never happened. I figured he wanted to gloat about some new gym opening or send me a half-hearted meme about getting gains or something equally tone-deaf. But his message was short. "You free this weekend? Need to talk." In person. I ignored it. 2 days later, he called. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. "Hello, Alex," he said, his voice unusually serious. "Thanks for picking up. I need to ask you for something. And I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from." "Go on," I said, guarded. "I know we haven't always. I know I've been a jerk, all right? But I'm in a situation, and I think you might be the only one who can help." I waited. "I need a loan." There it was. The truth. I laughed. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." "How much?" A pause. 75,000. I nearly dropped the phone. "Matt, are you out of your mind?" I wouldn't ask if I had another option. The gym, our flagship, got caught in a lease issue. The property owner defaulted, and now we're liable for months of back rent we didn't even know about. The bank's breathing down our neck. We're hemorrhaging clients. If we don't pay this off, we're going under. I was quiet for a long moment. "And what makes you think I have that kind of money?" "I saw the write-up in that newsletter. Heard you got promoted again. You're doing well. And you're smart. You probably saved a ton after you canceled the wedding, right?" I felt my stomach turn. "You're unbelievable. I know I don't deserve your help," he said. And for once, he sounded almost humbled. "But I'm not asking for me. I've got 10 employees. Some with families. They'll all lose their jobs if this place folds." He gave me the address and said he'd be there if I changed my mind. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was considering giving him the money, but because of what I was beginning to realize. I was desperate. And desperation makes people careless. I didn't want revenge. Not in the theatrical, movie-style way. I didn't want to hurt him just to watch him bleed. But I couldn't ignore the opportunity. Not when it was right there in front of me. Not after a lifetime of being mocked, ignored, and treated like the family doormat. Maybe this was my way of finally flipping the script. So the next morning, I called Ravi. Ravi had moved up fast since I started mentoring him. He was sharp, good with numbers, better with people. He now worked in strategy at a startup that specialized in business acquisitions and turnarounds. If anyone knew how to legally dismantle a struggling gym franchise and pick it apart for profit, it was him. "You want me to what?" he said over coffee. "Just look into it," I said. "See if it's salvageable, if it's worth investing in, or buying out." He narrowed his eyes. "Is this personal?" "Not exactly," I said, "but I won't pretend I'm unbiased." He agreed. Within a week, he had a full report. The flagship gym was bleeding money. 2 locations had already closed. Matt had a lease dispute on one and a wrongful termination lawsuit pending from a former trainer. The brand was strong, but the business model was crumbling. If someone came in now, Ravi said, they could buy the whole thing for pennies. Rebrand it. Streamline it. Make it profitable. I nodded. Could we do it? He leaned back. With the right investor? Yeah. That night, I thought long and hard. Did I want to become part owner of my brother's gym business? No. But did I want to save it? Also no. What I wanted was leverage. Not to destroy him, but to remind him, and the rest of my family, that the kid they ignored, mocked, and dismissed was now in a position to decide their fate. I called Claire. She was in private wealth management and had a client, a young entrepreneur with a history of investing in distressed fitness brands. We had dinner, and I laid it out. She was quiet for a while. Then she said, "You're not doing this for the money, are you?" "No," I said, "but I won't say no to a profit." She made the introduction. The client was interested. Negotiations began. Matt didn't know yet. The purchase offer was structured to go through the leaseholder, who had defaulted, giving us first right of refusal. It was messy, but legal, and when the deal was almost ready, I went to visit Matt. He looked thinner, tired. The confident gym bro swagger had worn off. He led me into his office, which doubled as a storage room now. "I didn't think you'd show," he said. "I came to talk." He nodded. "So, you thinking about the loan?" "No," I said, "but I am thinking about helping you." His eyes lit up. "Seriously?" I nodded. "On one condition. Total transparency. You tell me everything. Numbers, debts, lawsuits. You don't hold anything back." He hesitated, then sighed. "All right. Yeah, you deserve that." So he told me everything. And the more he talked, the more I realized how fragile his empire really was. When I left that day, I called Ravi and Claire. "Let's move forward," I said. I wasn't doing this out of spite. I wasn't doing it to make Matt suffer. I was doing it to rewrite the story, to walk into a family gathering, someday, and have them realize I wasn't the weak one. I wasn't the failure. I wasn't the sensitive little brother who needed defending. I was the one who made it. I was the one who turned heartbreak into power. And they were about to find out exactly what that looked like. A month after that final meeting with Matt, the deal closed. It wasn't loud. No dramatic boardroom standoff. No signatures across a long mahogany table. Just a quiet transfer of ownership through a string of legal documents and contracts handled by Claire's client and Ravi's firm. The flagship location that Matt had clung to, the one he begged me to save, was no longer his. We let him find out the hard way. It was a Tuesday morning when he walked into the gym and found a new lock on the office door. A printed notice taped to the glass read, "Under new management." Inside, his old staff were already being briefed by Ravi and Claire's client, who planned to keep most of them on board, except Matt, of course. His termination notice had been sent that morning via email, along with a buyout offer for his remaining equity in the brand. It wasn't generous, but it was legal, ironclad, final. He tried to fight it. Of course he did. He called me 12 times in one day, left a voicemail every hour. His voice ranged from furious to desperate to outright confused. "You can't do this," one message said. "This is my company. This is my brand. You don't even like fitness, Alex." But I didn't need to like it. I just needed to be smart. And he'd underestimated me for the last time. The next family event was my dad's retirement party. A backyard thing, cheap decorations, folding chairs, the smell of overcooked hot dogs, and paper plates stacked high. I almost didn't go. Claire told me I didn't know them anything. She was right. But this wasn't about them anymore. This was about walking back into that backyard with my shoulders back, my chin high, and a quiet storm behind my eyes. When I stepped in, heads turned. Not just because of how I looked, clean cut, confident, fitted navy shirt, fresh watch, but because I didn't hesitate. I didn't shrink. I didn't hover in the corner like I used to, nervously sipping a drink and waiting for someone to acknowledge me. I walked straight up to my dad, shook his hand, and said, "Congrats." He blinked. "Alex, you came." I did. He glanced past me. "Is, Natalie with you?" I almost laughed. "No, she's not. And she never will be again." He had the decency to look embarrassed. My mom approached minutes later. She gave me that same plastic smile she always had and said, "You look well." "I am well," I replied. She opened her mouth to say something else, but faltered. "Did Matt talk to you?" she asked, lowering her voice. "About what?" "You know exactly what." I took a sip of water, looked out over the yard, and said, "I didn't do anything to Matt. He did it to himself." She frowned. "You bought his gym." "No," I said, "but I helped someone who did." Her voice hardened. "Why?" I turned to her, locking eyes. "Because I'm tired of pretending I owe this family silence." She stared at me for a long time. "You always were too sensitive." "No," I said. "I was always paying attention." She walked away after that. The rest of the event was uneventful. Most people stayed civil. Some gave me knowing looks, some curious, some impressed, some quietly stunned. I stayed for an hour, long enough to show them I wasn't hiding. Then I left. Matt tried to rebuild, of course. Tried to start a new gym under a different name. But with his reputation tanked, lawsuits piling up, and debts he could no longer shuffle around, it fizzled out in under 6 months. Last I heard, he was working as a fitness consultant for a friend's startup, barely scraping by, still insisting he was taking time to regroup. As for Natalie, she showed up again, not in person, but through mutual friends, whispers, messages passed like notes behind teachers' backs. She asks about you. Lily told me one night over drinks. I don't care, I replied. Lily grinned. I know. That's what makes it perfect. But Natalie didn't just ask. She circled. I found out she'd applied for a job at a partner firm of mine, one we'd just started collaborating with on a campaign. Her resume made it to the final round. I saw her name on the list, and I made one call. Not to get her blacklisted, just flagged. I told the hiring manager I had concerns about her judgment. No specifics, no character assassination, just enough to make them pause. She didn't get the job. Was that petty? Maybe. But I slept like a baby that night. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. Claire and I took a trip to Italy over the summer. I ran my first half marathon. I took a public speaking course and gave a talk at a regional marketing conference where I got a standing ovation. I even launched a side consulting gig with Ravi, helping young professionals navigate office politics, rebuild their confidence, and carve their own path. It was during one of those sessions that a young guy named Ethan asked me, "How did you do it? How did you stop being the quiet one and start being the one people listen to?" And I told him the truth. You stop asking for permission. The revenge wasn't about money, or power, or even getting even. It was about transformation. Becoming the kind of person who didn't need to prove anything anymore, because he'd already proved it to himself. My family never apologized. Not really. There were awkward nods, occasional attempts to reconnect, but no real ownership. That's fine. I stopped needing it. Because revenge isn't about making them feel pain. It's about making them watch you become everything they said you'd never be. And I did. In every way that mattered. From the ashes of betrayal, I built a life so solid, so strong, that not even their silence could shake it. And as I stood in my new office one evening, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline, phone buzzing with another speaking invite, I thought back to that voicemail Natalie left. I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. She never got to say it to my face. But I didn't need to hear it, because I already knew. They all saw it. And this time, they couldn't look away.